Hello, welcome to the next lesson. If you have not started this series yet, please go back and start with Book 1, Lesson 1. They told me you had been to her, and mentioned me to him. She dio me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? This is a reminder. Remember gave translates to dio. I dio her 1, they dio him 2. You dio us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret, kept from all the rest, between yourself and me. That's the most important piece of evidence we've escucho yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now let the jury. If any one of them can explain it, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. I'll give him 6pence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates, she doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it, but none of them attempted to explain the paper. This is a reminder. Remember yet translates to todavia. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, you know, as we needn't try to encontrar any. And todavia I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said, which he certainly did not, being made entirely of cardboard. This is a reminder. Remember right translates to derecho. This is a reminder. Remember gave translates to dio. This is a reminder. Remember why translates to porque. All derecho so far, said the king, and he went on muttering over the verses to himself. We know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. I dio her 1, they dio him 2. Porque, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But it goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. Why, there they are, said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit. You never had fits, my dear, I think, he said to the queen. This is a reminder. Remember off translates to apagado. Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The unfortunate little Bill had left apagado writing on his slate with one finger, as he found it made no mark. But he now hastily began again, using the ink that was trickling down his face, as long as it lasted. Then the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence. It's a pun, the king added in an offended tone, and everybody laughed. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. You're nada but a pack of cards. This is a reminder. Remember gave translates to dio. This is a reminder. Remember off translates to apagado. At this the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. She dio a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them apagado, and found ella misma lying on the bank, with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Wake up, Alice dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. This is a reminder. Remember such translates to tale. Oh, I've had tal a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, It was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice consigo up and ran apagado, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. This is a reminder. Remember sat translates to sentado. But her sister sentado still justo as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun, and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. In the next paragraph we are introducing a new word. The word place translates to lugar. First, she dreamed of little Alice ella misma, and once again the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voz, and see that queer little toss of her head to keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still, as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole lugar around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. This is a reminder. Remember, white translates to blanco. The long grass rustled at her feet as the blanco rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups as the March hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voz of the queen ordering Apagado, her unfortunate guest, to execution. Once more the pig baby was sneezing on the Duchess's knee while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the griffin, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sobs of the miserable mock turtle. This is a reminder. Remember sat translates to sentado. This is a reminder. Remember place translates to lugar. So she sentado on, with closed eyes, and half believed ella misma in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again, and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voz of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek of the griffin, and all the other queer noises would change, she knew, to the confused clamor of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the lugar of the mock turtle's heavy sobs. Lastly, she pictured to ella misma how this same little sister of hers would in the aftertime be ella misma a grown woman, and how she would keep, through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children, and haste their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows, and encounter a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life, and the happy summer days. The end.